Hey, solopreneurs. Today we have Anna Nelson of Anna Nelson LLC. She is going to help us discover our strengths so that we can improve our businesses as well as our lives. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Anna, thank you for being on Solopreneur Money.
Thank you for having me, Gabe.
I'm excited to have you on. We are going to talk about strengths and how we can discover our strengths to then improve our businesses and our lives. But before we go there, I'd love to hear your story.
Sure. Well, since this is a podcast geared for solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, I think it's perfect because I grew up the oldest of five. My dad was a social worker, so we did not have a lot of money. And if you wanted to buy something, you had to come up with a way to earn the money yourself to buy it. So my first job ever, or my first business, let's say, was babysitting. It started at the age of 12, and I earned $2.50 an hour. And my first big purchase that I ever bought was a pair of $30 Gap jeans. And it was a big deal because where I grew up, we did not have a Gap. And so we had to drive, 2.5 hours away to the nearest Gap. And I got my first pair of Gap jeans. So I've always been interested in making money for myself because I just knew, like, you earn money and you save it, you have freedom to do different things. So, but I've also worked corporate. So I've worked in the financial services industry, retail industry, marketing as a project manager. And 5 years ago was when I took the big leap, which when you work in a toxic work environment, it's easier to take a leap and be like, you know what? I think I'm going to start it. I'm going to pursue working on my own. And so 5 years ago was when I first started pursuing the entrepreneurial dream. And it has been a journey and way harder than I thought it would ever be. It is not easy. And so currently I'm an executive coach to entrepreneurs, and I help them build a business around their strengths and then also build a team around the business owner's strengths.
Very interesting.
That's high level. That's high level.
I love the high level. I think it's fantastic, but I gotta go back. I gotta go back to the Gap jeans.
Okay.
Did the Gap jeans get worn literally every single day, or did they get put into a rotation? I mean, because there's a lot of ways to go about that first pair of Gap jeans that you bought that you worked really hard for. Either A, you wear them all the time, or B, you're like, I don't want to ruin these Gap jeans. I want to only wear these a certain time. How did you go about handling the Gap jeans?
This is going to sound a little weird, but I grew up in a pretty conservative family where the girls, we couldn't wear jeans. The rule was more than once a week to school. So I could wear like different colored jeans. So I had a pair of purple jeans, a pair of green jeans, red jeans, and then navy blue jeans. And then the Gap jeans were like my special, like, fifth day of the week. So I was allowed to wear them one day a week at school. And I cannot remember how often I wore them on the weekend. I just remember school. Like, I was never cool. We did not have money. I wore homemade clothes. But they were like that's all I remember about being able to wear them on that fifth day at school and feeling like I fit in finally. So that's all I remember about the jeans.
Hey, it makes total sense. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, my parents wouldn't let me wear sweatpants or shorts to school unless it was like right at the end of the school year. You could maybe get by with a pair of shorts, on a day when it was hot. So that rings true to me. Like, all right, you can only wear these once a week, or you can't, because I always wanted to just wear sweatpants. And now kids wear sweatpants and shorts all year round.
That's the style. That's the fashion. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just remember that being the number one thing of, like, I had a dream, i.e. a pair of $30 Gap jeans, and I set out to make it happen. And I mean, that's a lot of hours babysitting kids, a lot of Saturday mornings, a lot of evenings. And it was like an early lesson. Like, if you have your mind set on something, you can make it happen. It'll be hard work, but you can actually make it happen.
Well, it's a fantastic lesson. I mean, frankly, and it's a great lesson for all the solopreneurs listening because, yes, $2 an hour. It takes a while to really make a great living on $2 an hour, which is not realistic today. But still, you had a goal, you set the goal, you figured out what work you needed to do to achieve it, and you went to work about doing it. I mean, to me, that's literally financial planning. So you were a financial planner back then. That's awesome.
It's so okay. I'm the type of person where I just do like high level, like, oh, this is my life, boom, done. Whereas there's so many more stories in there. Like my senior year in high school, like I hated school. Which when we talk about strengths, like it's kind of I hated school. I never got good grades. I was never told I was smart. I was never told, hey, good. I was always grounded for my bad grades that I got in like math and science and physics. And so one day in it must have been algebra 2 because I wasn't smart enough. I was a senior in high school. I was in algebra 2. And I looked over at my friend Aaron and I was like, do you want to go to Hawaii? I don't even know how I came up with this idea, but I just clearly wasn't involved in my math class. And she was like, sure. I said, all right, I'll tell you tomorrow what the plan is. And so when I got home, I took out the phone book and I started looking up like travel agents back in the day. And my mom yelled up like, Anna, what are you doing up there? And I'm like, I'm planning a trip to Hawaii. And I could feel her eyes rolling in her head. And she had a friend over. She was a doctor's wife, and mom was like, she thinks she's going to Hawaii. I'm a senior in high school from a very conservative, strict family. Like, there's no way my parents are letting me just go to Hawaii, right? And I was like bound and determined. And later that night, um the family friend had called mom to be like, if Anna really wants to go to Hawaii, my husband and I have a doctor's conference in Honolulu in, I don't know, 2-3 months, whatever the timing was. And so we would be happy to chaperone her if she went. And I worked so hard every penny I could earn every night in the evening. I was like, I got my homework done and I was babysitting. I was like asking for birthday money. And I went to Hawaii with my friend Erin for like, I don't know, it must have been a week or something. And it was like the time of my life, right? Like it was like another thing of like, you have a dream. So I'm really good at making things happen. And I think those dreams, I think, are simpler almost in a way, because it's like you need $700 for a plane ticket. So how do you get it? And I think as an adult, our dreams get a little bit more costly, so it takes a longer time to save up that money. But I think now, many years later, when I think about that, like I didn't like school, but it was like, okay, what am I good at, right? Like, okay, I'm good at having a goal. I'm good at making it happen, looking at the different steps that have to happen. Um, I got buy-in from people, like, to giving, like, hey, this is why this is a great idea. And how do I use those strengths that I was innately using back then, currently now in my own business, helping people see, like, no, this is what you're really good at. What is it that you want to accomplish, and how can we get you there using the things that you're really good at?
I actually had no idea we were going there when we started this conversation, and I love that you went there. Um, the whole idea of I have a goal, I'm going to save, I'm going to work, I'm going to kind of backfill all the things I need to do to get there. Literally is the basis of financial planning. I mean, what you basically did, it was you set a goal, you figured out what you needed to do to get there, and you went from there. I think what happens is a lot of times people, not financial planning type people, not financial advisors, people who I frankly love to work with because they go, I don't know what to do, just tell me what to do, and I'm thankful for that every day. Um, but I think what happens is we start to get into adulthood, and then we start to get some head trash around the fact that we can't go do those things. Um, which is really interesting because here you were at what, 17, 18 years of age and said, I want to go to Hawaii. What do I got to do that? And you did it. That's impressive. Very, very impressive.
Yeah, well, and I think that's it. Like, there's so many things here, because you think about ourselves. You and I and I don't know all of your backstory, right? But I'm going to project this on you. So both you and I, we want to make money on our own, right? So how are we going to do that? But then what are all the things that we have to overcome in order to be brave to, in my case, quit my job 5 years ago and be like, I'm going to make this happen? Because I think as adults, there's the prescribed plan. At least in my family, it was, get good grades, go to college, get a job, and work there. Okay, that's fine, but then it makes it really hard to kind of break away and be like, but I have a dream of doing this thing over here, but no one else shares that dream. So how are you going to get buy-in from your friends and family that like this crazy idea that you have to work on your own is actually going to be viable, just maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but at some point. So like, how do you find the supportive people around you to be like, okay, you have this dream, how can I help you get there? And so unlearning, kind of learning to be brave again. And I think for myself as an entrepreneur, where I'm like, oh my goodness, like there are a lot of scary things that you have to do, and more people, the stakes are higher. Like believing in yourself that you can do it and sticking with your guns, so to speak, is really mentally challenging, right? Like kind of like exercising or training for a marathon. I've only done one marathon, but that whole quote of it's 99% mental, 1% physical, like that's really true. And I think it's true in the creating your own business as well.
Oh, I completely agree. Completely agree. One of the things you said though a little bit ago is identifying your strengths and identifying the things that it was going to take you to get there. And that was what our topic was going to be. So let's go down that road a little bit. I mean, we're going to talk about how to discover our strengths and then use those to improve our businesses and our lives. And in preparation, just for everybody listening, in preparation, Anna sent me an email and said, hey, by the way, why don't you take this test? Why don't you take this strengths test and then let's talk about it as we go through our conversation? And I thought, what a great idea. Let's use me as a little bit of a guinea pig and go through that. But what are some of the things that you've learned over time in working with your clients to help them, A, discover their strengths, and then B, use those to improve their lives, improve their businesses?
I think one, learning what it is that people want. Like, why did you start this business? What are you passionate about? And I think so many times people are like, you start a business around the things that you're really passionate about. But it isn't about what you're passionate about, it's the way that you are thinking about the thing that you are passionate about. So I love. I've always loved having one-on-one conversations with people. Ever since I was little, I knew everybody. Everybody knew me and I knew everybody, and I was really good friends with them. And so, but it isn't about the fact that I like to talk to people. There's something deeper there. I actually love encouraging people to go out and do the thing that they want. So for me, to understand, like, Gabe, what is it that you ultimately want to accomplish having your business as the platform? Like, what is it about having your business? And then backtracking to be like, well, this explains why you're really interested in financial services. This is what gets you excited about looking at the stock market. This is what gets you excited about creating long-term relationships with your clients and helping them figure out what it is that they want. What is their financial blueprint for their life? Because what it is for them is going to be different than your next client, right? And so I think when we can go deeper and understand, like, it's not the why, it's kind of like it's just understanding like how you're wired, your makeup, your literal makeup, and how that shows up in the world, and then understanding like, oh, when people are like, what are the gifts that you have to share the world? Or if you're not using your gifts, you're stealing. And I'm like, it isn't as easy as just being like, this is my gift. Like, my gift is communicating one-on-one with people. I'm going to go do that. That isn't what it is. There's something much deeper there. And so when you understand the deeper part, then you can go out and make more of that happen.
Interesting. So let's take that a step further then. I mean, how do we discover that deeper piece, or how do you pull that out of your clients?
It's asking a lot of questions to really get them talking. And then for me, just the way that I'm wired as a coach, like obviously you have tons of coaches, they're all different. But for me, it's like connecting the dots for like, okay, so this is what you want to do, or this is what you're really passionate about. Um, how do you feel the most productive? What do you love the most in your business? What are the things you don't like in your business? And I'm a highly trained coach. I'm a ICF certified coach, and I'm also a Gallup certified strengths coach. And I love the strengths assessment as a tool to have shared verbiage between me and my client to be like, okay, hey, you know what? In your report, it says that you are, in your case, Gabe, an achiever. How do you see that showing up in your business? And so it isn't about labeling anyone. It's just kind of having a conversation to help someone become more self-aware of like, pay attention to these things, because that thing that makes you like so happy inside, that's the thing that you're wired to do. So how do you make more of that show up in your business? And then the thing that you're like, oh, I really don't want to do that. That thing is in the business, you delegate that to someone else who actually loves doing that thing. And that doesn't mean you can't do taxes, because we're all obligated to do our taxes and do. I don't like reconciling my bank accounts. So it doesn't mean that you're only doing the things that you love. It just means that you're doing more of what you're wired to do.
I remember, I'm thinking of all the way back into the early 2000s. I actually read a book, Now Go Discover Your Strengths, which I think is what this was kind of based upon. Um, so when you had said, when we had talked about, pre-call, and we talked about how this was going to come into play, and then you sent over the link, like, wait a second, I think I've actually read the book that this might have been based upon. Is that the basis of that?
I would have to look that up, but I remember that the name of that book title. But back in the early 2000s, when Clifton Strengths came up with their strengths assessment, they had a little book called Strengths. I think Clifton Strengths Assessment 2.0. I have a bunch of copies behind me here, but they had a little code, and then they had like a description of each of the talent themes. And now you do it online, and you don't necessarily need a book, and it's almost way more robust than it was back in the day. But yeah, but the point is the same. It's like you're discovering your strengths versus like, hey, let's focus on the things that, in my case, like math, back when I was a senior in high school, you're not good at. I'm never going to be good at it. Why spend time there, right?
Yeah, interesting. So let's maybe, if it's okay with you, let's kind of maybe do like a little mock session. Like, we've got this report. Help people understand how you operate. I mean, I always love having people share what they do, so that in case there's someone listening that says, I've thought about doing this, and maybe Anna could help me. So maybe let's go down this road a little bit, if that's okay with you.
Okay, so if no one's ever heard of the Clifton Strengths Assessment, you can just Google Clifton Strengths Assessment, and there'll be a website that pops up. And it's an assessment, and it's a tool. And I've known tons of people. If you've worked corporate, you may have taken this, and then you had someone come in, do something with it, and then it just gets put on the shelf. So the way that I structure things is it's a tool that I use between my client and I. So in our case, Gabe, one of the first questions I'll ask, um, there are a few other questions, but I'll start off with like, what do you love doing in your business?
What I truly love doing is just talking to my clients and helping them solve their problems. Conversations that then bring about the ability to, for lack of any other way to put it, ease their minds. Because usually people don't wake up in the morning and go, all right, it's time to call a financial planner, an advisor. It's usually they call, they email, they text, they reach out because there's a problem. Or with what's going on in the world, all of a sudden the market's crazy, or inflation's up, or oil is up, or whatever, and it's starting to cause problems with them, and they are starting to have concerns and worries. And so generally, I get those phone calls, those emails, those texts that says, "Hey, by the way, we need to visit," and it's usually because something is bothering them. I like solving that problem. I like helping them understand their situation, and then communicating with them what needs to be done next to get back to sleep, to feel better, to move on, to do whatever it is. That's where I really just truly have a lot of fun.
And what is it about like the financial industry that you really enjoy?
The biggest thing is when I first started off, was the freedom, the freedom of the financial freedom that this industry would provide me, meaning the ability to go build a business from nothing and allow me the freedom to live the life that I want to live. I knew I was going to have kids. I didn't know where we were going to live, but I knew that I wanted to have a lifestyle, and I knew I wanted to be able to coach my kids, be at the plays, be at the recitals, be at everything, and have nobody ever have a concern with it. So I wanted the freedom. That was what drew me to the business. What's keeping me in the business is the freedom, but a very, very close second is the relationships that have come from working with my clients and building those relationships.
What are so on the back end of your business or even like your podcast, like what are other things that you also enjoy doing in your business?
Well, the side benefit of the podcast is all these really cool people that I've gotten to meet all over around the world. That's been just really, really fun. I mean, you're in the Minneapolis area. I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We're 3.5, 4 hours away from each other. And the reality of the situation is we never would have met if it wasn't for this podcast. I've got a mastermind group that I got invited to be in with people around the world, put together by a gentleman in the UK. And there's someone in Delhi. There's some Scotland, Ireland, the UK. It's all over the place, and it's just really neat what's come about as a result of this podcast. And so that's the piece that I would say is it's just meeting new people and hearing their stories.
Okay, so this is where I'm like, okay, I wish we had a few hours because I have like this is like the high level of what I would be doing in a strict one-on-one coaching session. But so what I think is interesting is when we look at your strengths report, and this is not a coaching session, this is like now I'm just like sharing what I see. Like your third strength is a relator strength, and relators enjoy close one-on-one relationships with other people. And when you think about your particular business, you're it's a world where it is long-term relationships with clients. So if I sign up to be your client, this is not just a one day and I'm in and out. Instead, it's I'm assuming forever until I decide to go somewhere else or you're doing so well with my money. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to stick around. Plus, when you get to know someone, why would you want to leave them and you like them, right? Like that right there sets your business apart from my current financial advisor, where they called me, I think a year ago, and I was like, I didn't know. They were like, we're calling to see how you're doing. I'm like, I didn't know I was still a client. So, like, the way that you're having one on one relationships is really a key important part of your particular business model.
Very important. Yes. And it took a while for me to really figure out the relationships was the whole deal of the business. I mean, it took a while to get going and then to really appreciate it. And now when someone asks like, "Well, why would I go into this business?" Because it's all about relationships, and if you love relationships, this is a great place to be. The financial stuff is boring. It truly is boring. And I'll tell people that all day long. It's boring. I mean, the stocks are going to go up, they're going to go up, they're going to go down, they're going to do this. The financial planning and the relationship is where it's really fun. The investing side doesn't get me that excited. Um, Purely because it just doesn't. I like the relationships that come with it. I know it. I can talk it. I can tell exactly what needs to happen. But the fun is the relationships and the ability to help people achieve their goals. That's the fun stuff.
In that case as well, like our money, they people talk about how everyone talks about sex, for example, but no one talks about their money, where it's like, really? Like that's crazy. That's like we'll talk about these really deeply personal things, but not like how much money is in our bank account. And so building a relationship where I could say, okay, this is literally down to the penny how much I'm currently worth. My assets are worth this. And maybe I'm ashamed, like there's all these feelings and all of the things, and if I can feel safe enough telling you that, and then for you to be like, all right, now where do you want to go, however you go about helping your clients, it's like, okay, I just shared that with someone and he didn't turn me away, and he actually cares about helping me get to where I want to go. Like that right there sets you apart from so many financial planners.
hmm Yeah.
That's like one of your main value adds, right? And so not that you need to start charging exponentially because I'm really good at my one-on-one client relationships, but that's what sets you apart. That's like a core differentiator.
Yeah, it is, and there are other. I mean, there are great financial advisors out there that really do care and do a great work. But there, it's a different game, and we all operate differently, which is cool. And that's that's the beautiful thing about the business world is we can all run a business a different way, which is good.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a question. So so for listeners, there are 34 talent themes on the Strengths Report, and they vary depending on how you answer the question, which is how, it figures out like I'm different than Gabe, and that's great. And so our strengths show up differently, and the combination shows up differently. So one of the other strengths I'm curious about is your number 4 strength, maximizer, which people who are maximizers, which maximizer is my number 1, we like to take good things and make them better. So I'm curious if your clients, okay, this is what I think is fascinating. So when it comes to like figuring out what type of clients you like working for, what are some qualities that your clients kind of need to have in order for you to enjoy working with them?
Ooh, the biggest thing is they've got to be willing to trust. They've got to be willing to trust to say, "All right, I need you to help me, and I'm willing to tell you everything," like you said earlier, and then just tell me what I got to do. And when people are willing to share what's going on, and then they're willing to trust that I really truly have their best interest in mind, and I'm literally going to take them from where they are to where they're trying to be, and get them there, and tell them what to do. When they trust me, and they have the ability to pay the fees, and they have the ability to do the things we need to do. But when they trust me, that's like the first piece. If they trust me and they have those other pieces of the puzzle that can make this work, the experience for the client is amazing. And the experience for me is amazing because I'm fulfilled with that ability to truly help somebody and help make their situation better, which is kind of how that whole maximizer comes into play is where are you at? And go from there. And I think of a story. There's a client of mine that I've had for, oh boy, it's in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 years now. These clients have been with me. And most of my clients are long-term clients. We're talking literally 20, 15, 20 years. And I started my firm on my own April 1st of 2008. So we're going to hit my 14th year of my own firm here soon. But I've been doing this for the financial planning advisory work. The last time I switched into it was in 2003, and so I've had clients since 2003, working on nearly 20 years that I've been working doing this advisory work. And one of them came into me, and he brought everything. Him and his wife came in. They brought absolutely everything in. They set it on the table: tax returns, investments, debt, everything, which is what you're supposed to do anyways. For those of you listening, give us what we need so we know how to help you. And he explained everything, and he's like, "Whatever you want to know, ask." I'm like, "Well, I was planning on it." And he says, "Well, good, because I know you can't help me unless I tell you everything." This is an old guy that he's now retired, but I mean, he's not accustomed to telling everything. And he would tell his clients that he would refer to me. "Now, make sure when you go see Gabe that you tell him everything." Well, I'm not telling him everything, and geez, he doesn't need to know everything. And my client looks at him and says, like, "What do you mean? He can't help you unless you tell him where you are and where you're at." And so that initial trust allowed me to really truly understand them and then build the plan, which took them from in debt, no investments, nothing, to retired, sold their business, out of debt, happily retired, very comfortable. And that was all as a result because they trusted me at the very beginning to allow me to help them. And so that's the piece that I would say. It starts with trust.
Right. And then it builds on that, right? Like you said, like it's trust for me to share also, like, these are my hopes and my dreams, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to make it because right now I only have this much money in my bank account, or I'm only earning this much in my business. And then for you to say, given what you've shared now as a maximizer, right? Like, how can we make this better? Like, you're not a problem to solve. You're already, for you, it's like when you think about your clients, you almost, I'm kind of guessing, but I'm assuming they have to come to you to be like, this is what I want, right? There's some sort of dream that they're not able to get to, but they don't know how to get out of it. So for you having a client who has big dreams to get out of, like, futuristic, and for you to be like, okay, this is what I want. Just like for me, like, I don't like solving problems. Like, one of the strengths on the assessment is restorative. And restorative loves to solve problems. They love to be like, okay, how can I fix this thing? Like, I worked with someone who he was like, the analogy was, if there's a warehouse full of refrigerators that were broken, he would be so happy fixing each and every refrigerator. That would bring him a ton of joy. So he's fixing this problem. What's the problem? What's wrong with this refrigerator? And then the next one, then the next one. Whereas for you and I would die if I had to work in a refrigerator warehouse fixing them, right? But if you were like, how can we make the design of this refrigerator better? I'd be like, all right, I'm all over that one, right? And so for me, even it's like my clients come to me, they have big dreams, they're doing the work, but there's something in the way. And for me, how I help them is like, okay, let's start with what your strengths are and let's start leaning into those. And that's what's going to get you to the next level. Whereas for you, they're coming to you with big dreams. They are stuck, and you're like, now you need a plan to get from where you are to there. And so we're not looking at our clients as problems, but we're excited about helping them get to where they want to go. So we're making that they're already doing great. Now let's how do we get them to be better versions of themselves?
Yeah, yeah. There's a line that was stated in my coaching program that I was involved in with a bunch of other financial advisors, and the coach didn't. She would say, "More is not better. It's not more is better. It's better is better." And so, how can we make you better? And so, better is better, which sounds kind of weird. It's horrible grammar, but really, better is better. How can we help you get better? Is the idea.
Yes. And then you have clients who they're solopreneurs, right? So you're going to have clients who love to be the refrigerator fix it man, if you know. And so for them, recognizing, okay, these are the types of clients I enjoy working with, and then go find more of them, because the more clients that you identify as like, I love working with this particular client, the happier you're going to be. It's like a different way. So when I work with clients, like, one of the things is like, who do you love working with, right? And so it's like a different way of figuring out who your niche is. And so I love that strengths is like, it helps you build your business around what it is you're good at, starting with who do you love working with, and then understanding these are the parameters of clients I enjoy working with. Like, they have to meet these requirements. And if they don't, then they are meant for another coach, another financial planner.
Let's go down that road a little bit, because that was the whole topic of our conversation today, was how to use our strengths to then use it to make our businesses better and our lives better. How do we as solopreneurs, obviously we can go take this test, and we'll make sure that the link is in the show notes for someone to take the test. If you don't mind telling me what's the website someone would go to, and then we'll make sure we get it into the show notes.
Gallup.com, and there are two options. Just pay for the $50 version. You will not go wrong. It's worth every single penny.
Okay, so gallup.com, and it's a strengths, Clifton Strengths test or assessment is what you would do.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So someone goes through and they say, all right, I'm going to spend the $50. I'm going to take this. It's going to give me my understanding of who I am on this. How do we then, as solopreneurs, interpret that to determine who we should be working with? How do we do that?
Okay, so this is the tricky part where I love talking about this as a tool, but then like this is also how I sit down with people and actually say point out the things that maybe you'd think are obvious, but they're actually not. But for starters, if you're like, all right, I just have $50 to my name, I'm going to take this assessment, read through it, highlight everything that you're like, this is totally me, and start thinking through on a deep level, like in your business, if we're taking it in the context of business and the way that you show up is the same, whether it's in relationships, volunteer work, like anywhere you show up, your strengths are also there. But in the context of business, what do you love doing in your business? What do you not like doing? What, who are the types of people that you love working with? What are the types of offers that you really enjoy giving people? How are you consistently showing up, and what are the types of questions you're always asking your people? Or how are you always like, "Oh my goodness," like Gabe, if I met you at a coffee shop somewhere randomly and you found out that I was like, "Oh, I need a new financial advisor. I really want to grow my investments, but I'm not really sure how." Like, what are the things that get you excited right away to be like, "Oh my goodness, you have to reach out to me. Here's my card. I can totally help you." Like, what are the things that you're like, "I can totally do this. Please let me into your life. I can help you." Start thinking through those things and jot them down. And this is not necessary. Some things are obvious, but other things take time because we do them so naturally that we don't even know it. And like a number of years ago, this is something I don't put on my resume or anything, but when I was working as a project manager, I again, I grew up not a lot of money, and if we I learned how to sew at a pretty young age, so if I wanted a dress, I would learn how to make a dress for myself. So I always thought maybe I'd have a fashion company or a clothing company. And fast forward many years later, I'd moved to Minneapolis after living in Boston for 10 years, and I didn't know anyone. I was so lonely and so depressed, and I was like, "You know what? Maybe I'll start sewing again as a way to like eat up time on the weekends." And then I learned about these companies, like there are these lingerie patterns. So learn how to make your own bra was pretty big on the sewing blog. So I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. So I learned how to make a bra. Then I was like, oh my goodness. Then I found out about this class that you could take. And then I was driving to Toronto one week to learn how to do pattern drafting for bras. And then I found out like, oh, you could take a 9-week, become a certified professional bra maker in 9 weeks. So I like sold stock. I had some stock that I sold at 63 to pay for this. Took a 9-week leave of absence from my job to go pursue becoming a professional bra maker. I did it. I was like, I'm all in. This is totally what I'm going to do. This is the business idea. And so I spent thousands of dollars. Come back. I turned my living room into a sewing studio. I had industrial sewing machines. I got myself some clients. So I was making custom bras. I was working on my business plan, all of the things. So I was heavily invested in this idea. And one day someone called. It was a Saturday. I was supposed to do this paid project. I had a deadline. I needed to get it done. I was getting paid for it. And I was like, you cannot do anything else until you get this project done. And someone called an hour later to be like, hey, do you want to meet up for coffee? And I was like, absolutely, I'll see you there in 10 minutes. And I dropped my sewing project like a hot potato and ran out the door. And on my way to the coffee shop, I was like, there must be something wrong with this particular business venture that I have embarked on if I am willing to stop the thing that I know I'm supposed to do in order to go meet up and have coffee with someone. And that was the first time where I was like, okay, what is it that I really enjoy doing? Because we can have so many ideas like, ooh, Gabe wrote a book. Maybe I should write a book. Like, ooh, Gabe did this. Maybe I should do this. Oh, that person did this. Maybe I should do that. And it's good to get ideas and be inspired, but you have to really stop and understand what is it that you love doing. And for me, I love one on one conversations. I don't love sitting around by myself in my living room slash sewing studio, cutting up fabric and sewing it together. I can't do that day after day after day. I like will get so lonely and so depressed and I just can't do it. But you give me a stranger to talk to for a bit, you better believe I'm like riding high as a kite because I love it. And so when it comes to figuring out, like, okay, you can read your Clifton Strengths assessment, really pay attention and be honest about what it is you love doing. Do you love sitting in an armchair and reading books all day on many different subjects? Maybe you love learning. And how is it that you could maybe share what you've learned and disseminate it in a way for other people who need to learn that knowledge? Like, there's so many ways in which what it is that we love doing, we can utilize to help others, but you have to pay attention to it.
Very interesting. And it starts with a understanding of self as well as taking some type of a like the strengths test to help get a feeling as to where you should be going.
Yeah, because this isn't going to say, it doesn't say your clients make $1 million a year and have 20, like, it's not prescriptive. It's more like you go to the doctor and you're like, there's something wrong with me. And they're like, wow, your cholesterol's really high. So it's a guide to say, okay, actually, my cholesterol's really high because I eat hamburgers every single day, 3 meals a week. And so it gives you self awareness of, oh, that action actually matters. It's manifesting in a different way. Now, how do I undo that? Because I don't want to have high cholesterol. So it's kind of just like shared verbiage, a little starting point for you to become self aware. You can always go back to it too to be like, oh, yeah. And especially, I think, because we get caught up in like, what are you not good at? And this gives you a starting place of like, this is what you are good at. And this is what you naturally do that you are really good at. And if you concentrate your efforts there, you will be happier than if you did something else instead.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That makes total sense. So focus on our strengths, what makes us happy, and then start to figure out, okay, what are those little things that we need to start tweaking, changing, etc., with our businesses, with our lives to put us in our for lack of any other way to put it, our happy place, so that we can start to do more. We'll say. Okay, good. Well, Anna, this is a podcast about money, and there's three questions I ask everybody about money. And since we dug into that a little bit earlier, the three questions I ask everybody are as follows: one, what is the smartest thing you've ever done regarding money? And tell me that story.
So I would say save it. Again, growing up with no money, because I had to earn my money starting at a very young age, I understand the value of a dollar and I'm willing to spend my money. Like, I'll buy expensive things, but I will do it because I didn't buy a lot of cheap things or however my choices are. So I'd say learning from a very young age that if you want to have money, you need to work for it, obviously, but also save it. And I lived in Boston for 10 years. I didn't have a car. So I would always say like $500, like basically what would be a car payment or plus insurance plus gas. I would put that $500 into a savings account and I would save it. So bottom line, save. So I always saved and I never spent more than I made. Anything I've ever bought, I've always been able to afford it.
That's good. That's smart. It's good. It's a good foundation that you learned for a long time, all the way since you were a little girl. I love that. All right. So what's the other side? What's the biggest mistake you've made regarding money? And tell me that story.
I think so what's interesting is the question, because I got to see the questions beforehand and it was framed in like as a entrepreneur. And I would say, I think the biggest mistakes is twofold. One, when it comes to my business, spending my money on things that turned out to be a little bit of a shiny object where it was like, no, that's not actually, I don't want to become an expert at creating Instagram reels to market myself. What I really should do is, I don't know, spend my money somewhere else or save it or just do the work. I don't need to keep taking these courses, but I get sucked up by the marketing. And I think ultimately too, not trusting my own gut, because there was a time where I had a significant amount of money and I remember being like, this is a significant amount of money. Like, who can I talk to who can help me maximize this pile of money that I'm currently sitting on. And I have a financial advisor. I never actually really liked them from the beginning, and I'm still with them years later, and I'm doing nothing. So I would say, like, doing nothing, even though my gut is telling me, like, get out, and I'm doing nothing. So I don't know if that's like not trusting my gut, I guess, is the mistake that I have had in the recent. So I know how to save my money, but then getting it to the next level, I think that's a little confusing, which, as you know, not everyone is trustworthy. Not everyone knows what they're doing. And so sticking around and shopping around until I find someone where I'm like, ooh, that person's good, I'm going to go with that person. So now I don't have that pile of money anymore because I've spent it all on different things, but I haven't ever spent, I'm not in debt, but I've spent it all on these things that I thought. So, uh, yeah. Does that answer your question fully?
Yeah, I mean, what you basically came around with is you were not trusting your gut on some things, and that has a tendency to cause mistakes with money. Is when we don't trust our gut. Money is one of those things that is very emotional, and how we behave around our money and with our money has a lot to do with our emotions. And the gut is a huge indicator of things we should do, shouldn't do, etc. And so sometimes when we ignore that, that makes total sense. That makes sense that that could be seen as a mistake on your end. So I'm going to go to the third question. The third question is what does mastering your finances mean to you?
I think having enough where I can then do whatever it is that I want with it. So, in all of the different corporate jobs that I've ever had, I've always had a pile of money where if I ever got laid off, which has happened to me, or if I ever needed to quit, which I've done, I could do it. And so, just having a pile of, and I say a pile, obviously, like I'm Scrooge or something diving around in a vault with coins, but like having money accessible to me means that I have been able to make choices that other people wouldn't haven't been able to do. But so like when I quit my job 5 years ago, that's really scary. That is extremely scary to do, right? And most people stay in jobs that are terrible for them, but they don't have the financial flexibility to actually say, you know what? I'm not going to do this. I'm going to leave. I gave it my all, but this is not working for me. I'm going to go do something else. And I was able to do that because I had eaten years worth of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I've I would rather look poor and be rich than look rich than be poor, right? Like I don't have a ton of clothes. I don't have the fanciest car. I use my things for years, but because I have chosen to do that, like eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and my boss being like, "Oh my gosh, you're always eating," yeah, but that's because I just air quotes put $10 into my bank account. So mastering my finances means doing the work that it takes and making the sacrifice that it takes in order to accumulate money so that I have flexibility later on. So when something comes up, I can be like, oh, yeah, I'm totally down. I'm going to do that because I know that I have the resources to do it.
I love that. And what you basically just explained was freedom. You're doing the steps to make sure that you have the freedom to do what you want to do, and that peace of mind that says, "All right, you're right, boss. I am eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but one of these days I'm going to flip you the bird and I'm going to leave. So therefore, I'm going to be ready for it." So,
Exactly.
so let's just say that somebody decides they want to reach out to you. How do they get a hold of you? How can they find you?
So you can go to my website, Anna Y. Nelson, ANNAYNELSON.com, and there's a /contact. I love talking to people. So obviously, just reach out and you can connect with me there. Or if you're on LinkedIn or Instagram, go to @AnnaY. Nelson on both those platforms and you can find me. And I love talking to people. I don't care who you are. I love talking to people. And if you are someone who's like, I'm doing things, I really want to like maximize the impact that I'm having in the world, reach out to me and I can help get you there. So, and it starts by having a conversation. That's just how I operate. So, I don't have a freebie for you. I don't have any of those things. I'm still figuring that out on my end. But for me right now, it starts off with reaching out. So annawynelson.com/contact.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And Anna's contact information, everything will be in the show notes for you to just click right on and then reach out to her if you'd like. Is there anything else you would like to share, Anna?
Especially given that this is a podcast for entrepreneurs, people who are pursuing their dreams, like, and I'm in the same boat. Like we want to make a difference in the world, and the way that you want to make a difference in the world starts ultimately with the way that you're wired and the way that you're thinking. And so when you understand the way that you're wired better, you can have a bigger impact. And the things that might be frustrating you right now in your business might be because you're forcing something that just is not the way that you're wired. And that doesn't mean you might, like, I still have to do my taxes, like I said earlier, but that doesn't mean that I can't figure out how to do that thing. So for me, obviously, I've delegated it out to someone, right? But you have to, like, believe in yourself, but then also understand on a deep level how it is you're wired. And if you want to have a really big impact and have a team that helps create an even bigger impact in your business, if a team is something that you want to do, like, understanding how they work just means that get to create a bigger impact and do more of the things that you love doing and help more of the people that you love helping. And my life changed when I really understood that I'm really good at one-on-one, that my ability to connect one-on-one with many individuals was actually a strength. And it just wasn't like some flippity thing like, oh, Anna has so many friends. Okay, yeah, I do have so many friends, but it's deeper than that. They have so many friends where their lives have changed because of a conversation I've had with them. And I'm like, no, you should totally check out that course on buying your own house. And then 6 months later, a friend calling me back and be like, I bought my first house. I would never have done it without you. Like, that's my strength, helping someone understand what it is that they're good at. So, like, it's so meta, but like the thing that you're good at, like, it's in there, and you can have a business that you love and in more ways than just struggling through the things that nobody likes. Like, if you don't like doing social media, there's a reason for it. So how can you get new clients because you enjoy one-on-one relationships? Okay, so have a referral-based marketing plan instead of social media. So bottom line is, you're really good at something, your business can reflect that, and having a greater awareness is the start to all of that.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, Anna, thank you for being on Solopreneur Money.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Gabe. And I just really love that now I have a new friend.
Well, Solopreneurs, I hope you enjoyed the conversation that I just had with Anna as much as I did. It was fun going down the road of my strengths finder assessment and discussing some of the things that she saw as a coach on how to really take advantage of or better understand my strengths and how that then shows up in my business and my life. My 3 takeaways from this conversation are: 1, take some time to discover your strengths. I took the test. It was like $50. It was worth every bit of it to help me understand a little bit more about myself. 2, sit with the results, or just sit with your assessment of your strengths and analyze how that is showing up in your life and in your business. And then once you get an understanding of what that is, the 3rd takeaway would be to design your new reality and then take action. And so, takeaway number 1, discover your strengths. Number 2, sit with and analyze how that is showing up in your life. And number 3, design your new reality and take action. I truly appreciate you listening. You may not know that we do have a YouTube channel. It's called Solopreneur Money. If you're a YouTuber or like to watch YouTube or have someone, your friends who like to watch YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to my channel on YouTube if you would. Solopreneur Money. Have a fantastic day, everybody.